2019, HMRC introduced Making Tax Digital, or MTD. In July 2020, they announced some updates on how it will affect businesses in the future. My name's John Davis, and in this short video, I'm going to tell you all about MTD and those updates. So what is Making Tax Digital? Well, it was launched to bring our tax system into the digital age, with the idea being that businesses should be able to supply real-time information via software to HMRC to make taxes more transparent and simpler for everyone. Now, the first part of the MTD rollout was in April 2019. Since then, most VAT registered businesses have submitted their VAT returns via MTD compliant software. And so far, HMRC claim it's been a huge success. They've recently actually published a number of case studies showing how many businesses have actually found that using the software has saved a lot of time and made their lives easier. Now, the software itself isn't HMRC software, it's predominantly cloud-based software, for example, Xero and QuickBooks. Now, we've been using these for a number of years and we agree with HMRC, they do indeed save a lot of time and make lives easier for business owners. And the fact we already use them made it pretty simple for our clients in terms of switching to MTD last year, because we just carried on using the software we're using anyway. Of course, for a lot of businesses, transitioning to this software has been a lot of work. But since 2019, over 1.4 million businesses have been using MTD for their VAT returns. And even though some smaller businesses didn't have to use it, HMRC say that about 30% of them chose to use MTD voluntarily. So what's next? Well, in July, HMRC and the Treasury announced the next steps for MTD and also their 10-year plan for the tax system. Now, the key dates for MTD are firstly in April 2022. From this date, Making Tax Digital will apply to all of VAT registered businesses to submit the VAT returns. This basically removes the current exemptions for small businesses with an annual turnover of less than £85,000 and also some other exemptions for specific businesses for specific reasons. Then in April 2023, all unincorporated businesses and landlords with business income over £10,000 per year that are also liable to pay income tax will need to keep digital records and will need to use software to update HMRC quarterly on their figures. Now, there isn't any date yet for limited companies who are not VAT registered. The April 2023 date is for businesses paying income tax, i.e. sole trades and partnerships. The government will actually be consulting later this year on how the system will look for corporation tax. There's no set date yet, but the plan is that companies will have to submit corporation tax via MTD as well in the future. So what are the benefits? Well, the idea of MTD is it doesn't actually add any tax cost, and at the moment it doesn't change when the tax is paid. It's purely about getting up-to-date real-time information. Now, for example, coronavirus has highlighted one of the benefits of real-time information. So HMRC is saying that if it had already existed prior to coronavirus, it would have taken away a lot of the ill feeling over newly self-employed people not being applicable for any grants. Now, the coronavirus self-employed income support scheme, which is worth up to £14,000 in grants, was only given to self-employed people who were trading before the 5th of April 2019. And this was because tax returns are only submitted once per year. And when the grant was announced, the last submitted return was for the year to 5th of April 2019. Now, HMRC didn't want any fraudulent claims of people who suddenly kind of decided to be self-employed just to get the grant. Therefore, they had to go on the information they had and they used the last return submitted as evidence. Now, if quarterly returns had been submitted via MTD, this would have allowed a lot more newly self-employed people to correctly and properly claim the grant. Another benefit of the real-time information is it also helps kind of keep benefits and other adjustments to income tax up to date. This is exactly how it works for employees, because every month the employer provides real-time information to HMRC on every employee's salaries, which means HMRC know what everyone's earning, can update benefits and income tax accordingly. The other benefit, it will actually lead to easier tax returns. If you are providing kind of quarterly updates, HMRC will be able to pre-populate parts of your tax return. They already do this actually for people's salaries because they get P60s from the employers. Also some interest payments from bodies that have to tell HMRC anyway. So basically they already populate your tax return with anything where they already have the records. MTD will make this even easier because you'll already have information on your business or your landlord income. But what are the costs of MTD? Well, most of the software needed does cost money. At the moment, many small businesses, many landlords will use paper or Excel, which to an extent probably doesn't cost anything. You've already got Excel anyway, but these won't meet the MTD requirements in the future. And yes, the software does save time, but if your business only has income of around £10,000, the need to pay £20 to £30 per month for that software might seem a bit excessive. Now, will it change the tax payments? Now, as part of the 10-year strategy, the Treasury will look at whether they can change the frequency of tax payments. At the moment, VAT is calculated and paid quarterly, but income tax and corporation tax are on an annual basis. There's a feeling that this is unfair when employees on PAYE are taxed as soon as they earn the money, and they pay that PAYE every month. Therefore, why should companies and self-employed people effectively get kind of a year's grace before they pay? It also gets the tax in quicker for HMRC. The other thing, it can also lead to cash flow issues when that payment does have to be paid because not everybody budgets for it. So HMRC and Treasury would like to move to quarterly tax returns and quarterly tax payments in the future, but what they're going to do is going to have a consultation on that later in 2020. So overall, there's some really interesting developments there. Making Tax Digital was announced a number of years ago. It's been delayed a couple of times along the way, but the plan was always to bring all of the taxes into it. I think most of us saw coronavirus as perhaps another reason to delay a little bit more, but now that's not the case. Now, if you do need any help getting ready for MTD, just let us know. We're Zero Gold Partners and QuickBooks Platinum Elite Pro Advisors, which is a fancy way of saying we're pretty good with cloud software. And we moved well over 100 clients to MTD last year with no hassle at all for any of them. Now, I hope you found that useful. If you did, please like the video, subscribe and share it. And we'll be sharing more videos to keep you up to date on MTD and everything else to do with tax and accounts on our YouTube channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.